So this video is going to be more so just chatting about some things, bringing some things up that we get a lot of questions asked, and maybe just hopefully clarify a few things. So we're going to get into kind of what are scripts and what are scripts within RedM. I know a lot of people have asked about, oh, can you have this script? Can you do this? Can this script do this kind of thing? And so we're going to post a blog onto the website, but also I kind of wanted to make a video to share just to kind of talk about it and share. So we're just going to go for a ride and just kind of go through it. If you don't really want to listen to the video, you can also go read the blog. We're going to try to explain it. I will preface the video and say that I am not a professional developer. I may say things wrong, so don't shoot me out if something's wrong. This is just my understanding of doing RedM scripts and then my previous history of working within Rust as well. So whatever I know is what I've learned by breaking things and fixing it. So I'm definitely not a professional coder. I am learning as we go. So we'll get into kind of what are scripts in RedM. So most of us come from Red Dead Online or Red Dead Redemption 2, and we all know that there is a lot of limitations into this game itself. And so what scripts do is a custom code that adds additions to a server. The way RedM is we have a ton of files in the back end that we can load these scripts into, and you can think of scripts as the brains behind what you interact with. So for instance, we have Sire and KD. Those are two separate scripts created by two separate developers, and those give us the capability and functionalities of those scripts. Even our metabolism that we've been working on, or our herbalism, or our bounty hunter, those all give a functionality, and there's a brain behind them, which is the script. And so without these scripts, RedM would just be a base game. It'd just be RDR2 or RDO. It might be like a meta file in a way where you can have your own private lobby. But the scripts is really what creates the server, and it's kind of whatever you want that server to be. So in our case, where we're the equestrian slice of life sandbox, we have scripts that allow that. If you are more a hardcore roleplay server, you might have more roleplay scripts on your server. So it really just depends on what you're doing in these kind of instances. Where scripts come from, they can't just magically appear, as nice as that would be. Most of the scripts are either paid. I will say most scripts that we have are paid scripts. And then there is a lot of free scripts out there as well. They are publicly released by developers, and these developers are all across the world, all across experiences. There's not just one place these scripts come from. Of course, there is a base they have to function after. But other than that, it's just a line of coding over and over and over that is written by somebody. And so scripts come from all over the place. And when we're looking at them, there's also open source versus paid. Open source usually are the free ones. We can usually go in and you can see the entire code. You can go see exactly how the script is running. And then you have paid scripts, and Sire is a great example of that. Sire does not release an unencrypted or open source script. And that's because he doesn't want anybody to copy his script, and I don't blame him. And so a lot of the ones we have that are paid does have some restrictions because that developer doesn't want to give up their work and their experience of writing this code. And a lot of these scripts do get very complicated. When you start looking at like Sire and KD, there's a lot of very complicated functionality in them. And so with all these scripts, they have to function off of a framework. So kind of think of your PC. You have Windows 10, Windows 11. You have to have that to run your computer. And it's kind of in the same sense here of so there's Warp, there's RedM, there's QB there's RSG, there's all of these frameworks which these scripts have to work off of. And for us, we use Warp, which is one of the most commonly used kind of frameworks for these kind of servers. So when we're looking at scripts, we have to make sure it works with Warp. We can't use like a QB core to work on a Warp server. It just doesn't work that way. They don't get along. And then this kind of goes into limitations of scripting. And so with all scripts, as much as we would love for things to always be possible, and there's a lot of things that can be made possible, that is absolutely sure. But there's a lot of things we have to look into as server owners and managers and developers on like what kind of scripts you were looking into. So we always have a plan. What are we looking for? What are we wanting to add? What functionality is capable? But then also we have to look at what is the compatibility. Is this script and this script going to behave together? Is this script going to work really well with our framework? Is this script look nice, but maybe it's a resource hog and it's making the server stutter. So there's a lot of factors that go into scripts. As on the top level, it's like, oh, this script can do this, this, and this, and this. Is it actually going to perform well? Is it optimized? Is it going to cooperate with other scripts? So there's a lot that also goes into evaluating a script before we even purchase it. Luckily, a lot of the devs we buy scripts from have test servers, so we can go and jump in these servers and test them out, sometimes from a player perspective and sometimes from an admin perspective. We can't see the code, but we can actually see how to set things up, how to interact with them. And that really helps our decision when we're buying these scripts to actually see how they work. And I'm not going to say every script we buy we use. There's definitely been some scripts over time, and it's a learning curve for all, that we buy a script, it looks great, everything from the description and reviews looks amazing. We get into it and it just does not work in the way we want it to, or it doesn't get along with another script we have. And that's okay. That's just part of owning a server and part of running a piece of technology like we do. And so that's just kind of the process of it. Another thing with like limitations of RedM scripting, of at the base of it, we have Red Dead Redemption 2 and we have what Rockstar has made for us. And that includes the assets, that includes the animations, that includes scenarios, that includes everything, audio, all of it. We it's very, very difficult to add an animation or add an asset. We can have custom props, but for a horse example, this is built on a rig. And so the way this horse moves, the way that the rider sits on the horse, the saddle moves, and if you really look closely, the stirrups on the saddle are they're connected to the feet of your player, but they expand with your player rather than like it's very hard to explain. But you have rigging and you have all these 3D models and stuff, and it is very, very difficult to add that into a game. So we kind of have to work within what the game gives us. So if we wanted to add a custom animation that the game doesn't have, that's probably almost impossible to do. There might be a developer out there that knows how to do this at our level and the developer team and myself level of experience. It's not something that's an easy task for us to do. Maybe in a few years, it might be something we can find how to add, or there might be more resources. But at this time, it's just not something that's plausible for us to do. And I mean, for us being an equestrian server, it wasn't Red Dead was not built to be a horse game. We all kind of know this. And so we have to find the things that enable it to be. So we have Sire, we have KD horse scripts. We're working on some other scripts to give a little bit more life to the horses. We've added custom treats to the horses. And that's just something as server owners and developers, we have to kind of come up with the idea and use the tools at our fingertips to make this happen. A lot of people might come up and say, oh, well, there's ChatGPT. You can have ChatGPT write you a code and it'll make it be done and you'll have it perfect. And no, I've personally tried to use ChatGPT to write a very simple script. And in the end, it still did not work right. It worked almost right. But the problem is where a game updates, then you are responsible to go back in and update that script to still work with that game. And that's in any game. That's Minecraft, that's Rust, that's an arc, that's any game. If a game updates, then you need to make sure that your version of your plugin or your script works within that new updated game. So ChatGPT, I think, is a great tool to use, but I do not think it is the end-all tell-all of using it for a developer. There's GPTs out there that we can use and try to help us troubleshoot problems or try to start something, but going into ChatGPT, typing in a prompt and say, please make me a script that does this, is probably 10% of a way you can make it work. And also, it's better just to leave development of larger scripts into the hands of real developers that know what they're doing and you have the support, so then it's not just relying on you. And one big thing that we do run into a lot is bugs, and no piece of technology is bug free. That's your cell phone, social media, RedM, any game. There is no such thing as 100% bug free gaming, and that just happens. This goes back into how we're trying to get all these scripts to behave with one another and work with one another and work with a lot of players trying to interact with it, and a lot of different people that they play with controller, they play with mouse and keyboard, they might run on a Mac. There's a lot of different elements to this that might cause a bug. And so if anybody says, well, this is extremely buggy, well, unless the developer team knows, we can't fix it or try to fix it or try to say, hey, maybe you're doing something a little bit wrong. Let's see if we can fix it. And my experience is mainly in website design, and I can't tell you the number of times that when bugs come in, it's more than likely user error. So usually we try to troubleshoot with a player on, hey, what are you doing? Can you record what you're doing? And sometimes we can find it's a very simple solution. And so just kind of having an understanding when we're piecing together a server like we are with RedM, it's definitely going to be buggy. And that's just an expectation. And we try our best to make it not be buggy, but it happens. And so we try to fix those as quickly as our can. Our dev team works as quickly as they can. And the other thing is, there's some scripts that maybe it has a functionality that you can kind of quote unquote glitch it to work with another script. So sire VLC horses have a horse menu, and you can have your horses lay down, roll, rear up, do all these things. And there's a way that we can make them work on KDs. Now, it doesn't work for every single person, and you have to like set the horse as a saddle horse. And so literally what we're doing is glitching one script to try to work with a competitor script. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And that's just something we cannot fix if it does or does not work, because it's not intended for that purpose. And so that's kind of something I think a lot of people need to understand when you're talking about scripts and coding, is it's not going to be perfect. Our dev team can only work as hard as they can, and sometimes we are at the mercy of these developers. Of if a developer doesn't plan a release for months, then we just have to deal with it. We can try to accommodate where we can, but sometimes we just have to wait for a dev to post something. And one of the biggest things that's coming up soon is Sire's dropping a version 3 of their stable, and it's a supposed to be a huge drop for us. And we already know, and we've kind of explained to our community that the day that thing drops, it does not mean the day it's going to be added to the server. That script is entirely writing the config from our understanding. And so our team has to go in and reconfigure all the stats for the horses to fit for our server. We have to change the pricing. We have to make sure the compatibility with things we've set up in the previous months. And this script is also supposed to be bring breeding out, or it's supposed to be another script additional to it. Don't quote me on that, but we're also going to have to make sure that those work together. So there's a lot of pieces into getting a new script that we have to test on. And thankfully, we have a dev server. And so we load scripts on the dev server and we start configuring them and testing them and ultimately trying to break them. That is the goal, is to break these scripts in as many ways possible before we release it. So we kind of have an understanding of like what is going to happen. And then we have some troubleshooting on, hey, if this happens, you can do this. And so that is just something to keep in mind of when new scripts come out, or new scripts in general. It's not going to be an instant implementation. It's going to take maybe a week to get it done. It might even take longer, quite honestly, if there's other things that come up that are more important. And so kind of just being patient when scripts get released and when we add them in it to the server. And we get a lot of suggestions of, hey, let's add this script. Let's do this script. I saw this and it's free. Let's do this. And kind of being a responsible server owner and a responsible dev team of a server is, just because we can install a script does not mean we always should. There's definitely some scripts out there that we've seen, and we read the reviews, we check them out, and when we look at it as a whole, like, does this fit what the community wants as a whole, or is it going to be used by only one person? And every single thing we add to the server takes up space. And we just have to know, like, okay, if we add one thing that's only used by one or two people, is that worth the space besides a script that maybe hundreds of people could potentially use? And so that's something we also have to look at and just be like, how often is this script going to get used? At the end of the day, the biggest priority with any script and any server owner should be performance and player experience and kind of immersion, instead of adding a million features that players can interact with. And we have a lot of things within the tech room. That's absolutely true. But there's a lot of things too we don't do because it's going to affect our performance. And every month we're working on trying to optimize the server better and have better performance for players. And there's still areas we can expand to once we get to that point. But that is one of the biggest considerations of, if it's a script that's only going to be used by one or two people and it adds a ton of lag or some stutter or more data than we really need, it might not be the best option for the server in the long haul. So that's kind of just going through very quickly about scripts and some things we look into. RedM scripting is ever evolving. There's new scripts coming out daily. There's devs coming up with new things. There's a collective of people that is trying to work with CFX to make more things possible for RedM servers. And that's not just us, that's everybody in the RedM space. Um, but every feature you enjoy in a custom server is a result of time and teamwork and headaches and exhaustion. And the biggest thing just to know is, when it comes to scripts, we try our best, and especially in the tack room, we try our best to give the players what they want. But also just respect our devs and report bugs when you see them, and try to be thorough when you're reporting those bugs, because that helps us be able to go through and troubleshoot them as best we can. And just understand some things take time. It might not be possible right now. It might be something in the future we can look into. And bugs, we have to troubleshoot them, and we might have to wait on a developer. So if you have any questions about scripts or RedM in general, or what server I'm on, feel free to drop it in the comments, and we'll wait for another ride and another chit chat about something.